Welcome to We Are Fine and Neither Are You, a podcast brought to you by two lifetime besties dealing with the beauty and messiness of midlife. Nothing is off limits. Let's get into it. Hi, we are April and April. Welcome to We Are Fine and Neither Are You. We are two lifetime besties here to talk about the beauty and messiness of midlife. And today we have our first guest of the season. Her name is Hillary. She's actually a really good friend of April's from Southern California.
One
And
of my besties.
we're excited to have
Yes.
her here today. Hillary, soon to be 45, grew up in Southern California as the middle child of a large family with 8 children. After attending college in Idaho and finishing her degree in Provo, Utah, she moved back to California, married her high school sweetheart, and went to cosmetology school. She worked for a few years before she had her first baby at 27, and soon after added 2 more girls to their family. Hillary has spent most of her married life as a stay-at-home mom, but went back to work 2.5 years ago to get out of the 24/7 mommy mode. Then, at the age of 40, COVID hit and changed everything. The significant amount of downtime sent her mind into a dark place, and for the first time in her life, she considered therapy. Hillary hoped that therapy would fix her brain and then she could go back to being the happy, optimistic person she had always been. But what happened next was the exact opposite. She took the lid off a can of worms and could not close it. Through therapy, Hillary uncovered all her demons that had been hiding in the dark corners, and what followed was the perfect storm. Hillary began losing faith in her religion, struggling in her marriage, and experiencing deep depression, which terrified her. Suddenly, her foundation began to crumble. What she formerly referred to as her midlife crisis has now been reframed as her rebirth. For Hillary, this road has been scary, exhilarating, exhausting, rewarding, and anxiety ridden. But in hindsight, she can now appreciate everything that got her to this place. Today, we are here to talk to Hillary about her journey into healing and her path to spirituality. Hillary, thank you so much for joining us on We Are Fine and Neither Are You. We're so excited to have you here today. And we're just very grateful that you're going to tell your story because I think this is something that a lot of us have gone through, at this point in our lives. And, April and I talk about it as our renaissance. And so I think, we're calling it a renaissance, a rebirth, what have you, but we're just excited to hear your story. And I'm going to let April kind of take it from here since you guys are buddies. I know she's got a lot of questions and I'll just kind of chime in. Okay.
Oh, there I
You had
am.
to add her. Okay, so hi, love. How are
Hello.
you?
Good. Thank you guys so much for having me. I'm excited to be
Oh,
here and hang out with you
Yeah.
guys.
I know.
Yes.
It's so special. Okay, so where would you like to start, my love? Do you want to start with basically when you awoke and had this big spiritual awakening? Do you want to talk about when you first started, the cracks kind of started happening? Where would you like to start?
Where to start? Where to start? Actually, funny story. On the way over here, I was listening to your April Fool's podcast. So if your listeners have not listened to it, I highly recommend it.
Oh, thank you.
You guys were talking about like the craziness of your 20s and all the fun that you have. And I could not relate at all because
Oh,
being raised in a high demand religion, there was a certain way to do things. And there was a certain path that I felt I had to follow. And I didn't want to deviate. I didn't want to do anything that would damage me in the eyes of God, the way that I understood him. So I don't have any of these amazing memories. And I do feel like I missed out a little bit. But missing out in my 20s is not what started this whole thing. Kind of like you guys had mentioned in my bio, is it kind of started with COVID. So COVID hit at honestly the worst time. Well, I had finally, when you have young kids at home, all you dream about is when they're going to be in school and when you're going to have time to yourself and when you can take a shower without somebody knocking on the door. And I actually got to that point in fall of 2019. My littlest baby went off to TK, and suddenly I had time to myself every single morning from 8:15 till 1:30, and it was amazing. I was working out. I was helping my husband in his business. I just felt good, and I felt freedom for the first time in, 12 years. And so it was amazing. And then fast forward into 2020, and next thing you know, we're locking everything down. And not only are my kids not in school, but now they're like online homeschooling. And that was just really, really hard for me, as I'm sure it
Mm,
was hard for a lot of people. But
that was really
Yeah,
hard.
that
yeah.
was. It was. I mean, my kid was like, for eighth grade, my youngest was on the couch the whole time, all
Oh,
of eighth grade.
yeah, I mean, that
Mm,
sounds about right. And
Yeah,
even, for a while, my husband, he runs his own business, so he could kind of make his schedule, and we didn't know what was going on, so he shut down for a little bit, and he was home with me, and he actually saw like firsthand what the stay-at-home mom life was like, especially in the late afternoon, which I called the witching hour, right? Before
yep,
dinner when they're kind of ornery, they kind of need a
right,
nap, but
mhm.
they're too old for a nap. And he kind of got into a habit where when we would get to that kind of day, that point of day, he would go to his office. Like, I don't want to deal with this, which I
Ooh,
totally understood and I
yeah.
totally supported, but I'm like, I don't have an escape at all. I
right,
didn't have any tools to take care of myself. And so anyhow, as time went on, this downtime, being home, the not being busy, I just started to go like really dark. I
right,
got pretty sad. I had experienced mild depression after both of my girls. I think I had a little bit of baby blues for sure.
right,
But that was temporary and I got out of it. So, 2020 hit. By 2021, my kids were now starting to go back to school, and I was still just really sad. And when I was
right.
alone, I just had all these dark thoughts, and I would go to the dark place. So I said, okay, I'm going to do everything I can to take care of myself. So I started eating right, right? Because we all ate bread and cookies and shit, right?
Yep.
I got myself physically in shape. I still wasn't happy. So I thought, oh, spiritually, I'm not where I'm supposed to be. So I really need to lock in on like saying my prayers and studying, Bible and scripture and whatnot. And that did not help. And so finally I was like, I probably need some therapy. And ironically, I had talked to April, and April knew of a therapist that was like, I wanted somebody that was recommended. So
Yeah.
I thought, okay, I talked to my husband about it. I thought, oh, this is going to be great. I'm just going to go in. She's going to talk to me. It's going to be wonderful. So I go in and I just start unpacking all this figurative shit that's been living in my basement for probably forever,
Right.
and I'm kind of going dark. And I'm thinking, gosh, this doesn't feel better. Like
Mm.
it actually feels worse. And I started changing. And I remember being sad and depressed. And then what made me even more depressed is I would say, like, I miss the old Hillary. I miss the
Mm.
Hillary that was just going, going, going. Nothing could stop her. I could get everything done. I had enough patience for all my kids. I really missed that. But and then, I kind of felt like stuff was off with my husband. And we weren't very good communicators back then, but I thought, this is my worst nightmare. I'm doing
Mm.
therapy and I'm changing, and he's falling out of love with me. Like that's what I thought was happening.
Oh,
That's actually not what was happening, but that was my worst fear, and that's what was happening. And so finally, I'm unpacking all this stuff. I'm miserable to be around, just for the record. I wouldn't have wanted to hang out with myself then either. I'm miserable. My husband's unhappy, not necessarily with me, but I think he also was dealing with all the uncertainty and everything with COVID. And, at the time, we were part of a high demand religion. And the religion required a lot out of us for both of us. And it just felt like we were on this like hamster wheel.
mm.
And so finally it was fall of 2021, like I'll never forget because it was like a pivotal moment in my life. But we finally had probably the most real conversation that we ever had like in our life. Like we just basically brought all of our demons onto the table. I did and he did, and it was very obvious that the direction of our marriage was probably not to stay together. Um
Oof.
which was very fearful. And yeah, it was odd to sit across from my best friend, somebody I had done life with for almost 20 years and be like, I don't know if he wants to be with me. I don't know if this is good for me. So, in the religion I was raised in, before you get a divorce, you and your spouse should go and talk to your spiritual leader. You should sit down
Yeah.
with them and they should counsel with you. And so I said those words to him. I said, okay, all right, we don't know where we're going. So we should probably go talk to this individual. And I won't say for the first time in my life, but at that moment, I could see the future. I literally,
Mm.
like, was a fortune not I don't wanna say I was a fortune teller, but in that moment, I saw us going to this building, I saw us conversing with this individual, and I saw everything that was gonna happen after that, and I knew beyond a shadow of a doubt that 1, we would split up, and 2, that that next move was going to make things infinitely worse.
Mm.
That scared the shit out of me, and I was
Oh,
like,
yeah.
"Crap, like, what am I gonna do?" And I knew I can't go there. So we both agreed that's not how we're gonna handle this. And then what happened over the next couple weeks is I was like, "Wait a second. Wait, wait, wait." I was quiet and I thought about it and I thought, "Gosh, when you're, like, at rock bottom, you're supposed to go to church and it's supposed to make you feel better. I am at rock bottom, and the idea of going to church scares the shit out of me.
Mm.
Like, something's seriously off." So, let's see, after that, so I was just like, "Wow,
So
okay."
this is really a dark night of the soul. That's what you were going I mean, you were really in it. You were, like, figuring
100%,
out yeah, and
100%.
your husband just happened to be doing the same thing? Like, he was feeling the same way?
So, yes and no. So, he was
Okay.
definitely going through some darkness, absolutely. He was going through some darkness, and, I think I don't know the secret to marriage. I don't know what
Who
makes
does?
what makes it work, right? But I we are very connected, and even though there was so much shit that we needed to sift through, I think we both wanted to be together. And so he agreed with me going to church and doing all this stuff was going to make it worse. So we stopped going to church, and this was my dark night. So I
Mm.
realized, wait, something's wrong. And I stopped going to my church, but I still believed my faith implicitly. I a million percent believed that the way I was raised, that that was God's plan, that's what I was supposed to do, that was the right way to do life. So I thought, you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to do life the right way. I'm just not going to step into the Lord's worship house right now. That was like,
Because it wasn't bringing comfort to you anymore. That's
yes.
why. And you
So that
felt like if you kept doing that, you saw the end of your relationship.
yes. So
Okay.
so as I'm sitting there and I'm like realizing I'm like, wait, it's not a safe place to be. Huh, that's kind of weird. And then I kind of started doing like almost a walk backwards through my life. And I noticed how many of those moments I had had growing up where I may have learned something in my faith that just didn't resonate. Like that doesn't
Mm.
make sense to me. Like the easiest example I can think of is, back in the day when we were all fighting gay marriage because that was like the worst thing ever. And if two men were to get married and two women to get married, I mean, what would happen next, right? The world was going to collapse. And I remember saying to somebody of my faith, I said, "Hey, listen, like I get it. Like I personally, at the time, I believed that marriage was between a man and a woman and I was happily married. But if two men want to get married, how does that affect my marriage?
Right.
How does that devalue my own marriage because two other guys want to get married? Like it kind of doesn't matter." And then
Mm.
I got some response back of, "Oh, well, this is what's in the Bible, and this could affect our tax exempt status, and we would need to allow that." And I don't know, just some
Yeah.
bullshit, right?
Yep.
So I just started walking through little things and like the idea of baptism, which is, in kind of all faiths, this idea that if somebody is not like bathed in holy water, that we're going to die and get to the other side. And God's just going to be like, "Sorry, can't be in my presence. You weren't
Mm.
baptized here on earth." Like, what about all the billions of people on this planet that have not been exposed to Christianity? They're all just going to burn
Right.
in hell because even if they were good people and even if they lived a good life. So, sorry, I'm getting a little long winded.
No, but you know
No,
what's really interesting Go ahead, April.
no, I was just gonna say, it just wasn't making sense to you in your brain anymore. You're like, it doesn't resonate. This doesn't make any sense to me.
Yes.
And so what happened next? When were you and
So,
your husband
oh,
both kind of simultaneously feeling this way?
yes.
Like this
Okay.
just doesn't make sense anymore.
Okay.
And
So
you
you
know
brought me
what's
back.
really interesting about that too, before you answer? I
Mhm.
find it interesting that You both realize there's something more. You stepped back enough to have clear thinking of your own. You were actually having cognitive thinking. And then it all starts to kind of not make sense, which is
Yes.
really interesting. You almost have to take a step back. You can't do it when you're in it.
Okay.
You can't have these thoughts.
So you guys, I'm glad you guys are making these comments because it's bringing me
Yeah.
back to like the total aha moment. So
Yeah.
as I'm like thinking about all these stuff, I'm like, gosh, maybe the faith I was raised in isn't true. Like I thought that. I'm like, maybe it's not true. I had actually talked to April about this because I was close with her and I knew she was a safe space and I could kind of open up on my feelings. I thought maybe isn't true. And I kid you not, guys, that night I'm sitting with my husband in our bedroom. We're having another one of these deep conversations. And I go, babe, like, I don't think our faith is right. I actually think a lot of this is bogus. I think it's not true. And my husband goes, oh, I know. And I'm like,
Oh,
what? And he's like, oh, I know. And you guys, the betrayal, I go, how long have you known? How
mm.
long have you known that this isn't right? And he's like, probably 5 or 6 years. And
Hill.
you guys, I was just like, not you knew this, you didn't tell me. And I was like, why did you not tell me?
Boy.
Why would you why would you leave me in the dark? And he's like, because I knew you would leave me. And I was like,
Oh,
and what's
oh,
sad is that actually isn't true. I wouldn't have left him. I never wanted to in my faith, I was taught that it was like God first over everything, then spouse and family, then kind of everything else.
right.
And I always felt a little guilty because I knew, well, I think I'd choose my spouse. Like, don't get me wrong, I'm sure God is great. He's loving, He cares about me, He created me, but I've also never hung out with Him. He's never held me while, okay, maybe He has held me while He's crying. I mean, we can argue the
Yeah,
semantics,
I
but like,
know.
he has not physically touched me and pulled me
Right.
out of bed on a dark day. So I don't know if I have enough faith to choose somebody I sometimes kind of feel is around or my partner who's there every day and who has
Right.
saved my bacon time and time again, who's seen me at my best and my absolute worst and choose to stay with me. So he really believed that I would
Oh,
have left him. And I think it just shows like how disconnected we were. And in a lot of ways, our faith, or I guess my faith, because he was
mm.
already like, and I'm done with this, kind of came in between us.
But you know what? It really says a lot about your husband too, that he was willing to sacrifice his own happiness and his own connection with source, whatever you want to call that, God, and stay with you. Like you are who he chose, and you know in your heart you would have chose him. So how beautiful is that story?
So
And
it
we
is,
do see a lot of couples divorce whenever they go through a deconstruction of any kind. It's very hard. And
yes.
so
Well,
the fact
I have,
that,
yeah, I have to imagine that that's probably the church's master plan too, right? Is
yep,
that they they want to almost, I don't want to say they want to scare you into staying in your into the religion, but I mean, the fear that your spouse might
yeah,
leave you or your family might disown you or whatever. I
yeah,
mean, I feel like that's kind of a part of it too. It's
Right.
yeah,
part of their kind of master plan of having control over you.
Well, and
yeah,
sadly, that does happen a lot. There are people where
yeah,
one person loses their faith and that is the end of their marriage. And, then you do lose everything financially because you're splitting everything up. And,
right.
it really can be a mess. And I will say that that's one of like the small gifts. And, that was just the beginning of the road that I'm describing with you. The next few years were very, very dark. But the gift that I have is that my husband and I were on the same page. So as
Yeah,
I started to unpack all of this and realize maybe the world's a lot different than I thought it was. Maybe where I come from, what I'm doing here, and where I'm going, maybe it's much bigger than I ever knew. And so I'm totally open minded. My husband's open minded. I mean, I could come home and say, you know what, honey, I think that this life on earth is going to last 100 years and then we're going to go to Saturn and live 200 years. And he'd be like, interesting. Tell me why you think that. You know what I mean?
Oh, that's
I
so
mean, I've
lucky.
never
I
done
love that
anything
for
that
you.
outlandish, but I've come home with some pretty outlandish ideas, if I'm
Yeah.
being honest.
Well, and
So
you guys, listeners, Hillary is a fellow Aries like me. So I think anybody that's married to an Aries, they know that you really don't know what you're going to come home to. We're always going to have
right.
different ideas.
So I have a question.
Uh,
So now what? Like you guys have both told each other that you don't believe in the church. You don't think it's true. So then where do you go from there? Like how do you move
So,
past that?
yeah.
so there's this small moment of joy at the beginning. And I think I listened to a podcast that April sent me, and I think it was about spiritual awakening. But when I first realized, hey, I don't have to follow all these rigid rules, I don't have to give all of my energy to this entity, there is this small moment of joy and freedom. And the best way I can describe it is like walking down the street on a 100-degree day with a fur coat on and taking off that coat. It just felt
Oh,
like
yeah.
I could breathe. I felt freedom. So there was this small moment of joy. And then what followed that was another darkness that was darker than the first darkness. So
Yeah.
that's
Mm,
why I don't I don't recommend spiritually deconstructing for everybody. It's not it's it's not easy and you don't know how long it's going to take, but what happened for me is I had that moment of freedom and then the pendulum swung. I mean, if I knew everything and I had all the answers and I knew where I was going and where I came from and exactly how I had to live this life and what I had to do, the pendulum swung way back the other way to like, okay, complete atheism. Doesn't really freaking matter what you do. Who cares? We're all going to die tomorrow. Like,
Right.
kind of just I went from such a vivid true purpose to no purpose, which you'd think would be better, but it it really wasn't. So then I kind
Yeah.
of started when I say like my midlife crisis, I remember, being with my husband on vacation and just bawling because I had this total identity crisis. And I just
Mm,
said, my whole life I knew I was supposed to be a good wife. I was supposed to be a good mother. I was supposed to take care of my house. I was supposed to take care of my children. And so once I didn't have this pedestal that I was trying to get myself up on, I didn't know where to go. I was like desperate almost for like a mentor. It's like
yeah.
somebody else that I could mirror. And I really couldn't find that. I don't know if
So
you
I
guys.
completely relate with that because I went from similar feelings where I feel like I had all the answers and then I
Mhm.
had no answers. And then you don't know what's real and what's not. And is this just me making it up? And is this really something that I can hold on to? And you almost become a cynic. You're almost like, well,
right.
nothing's real then. I don't believe anything. It's like you're
Totally.
coming from an abusive relationship. And
Well,
now
and I
you
think
just,
too, sorry, April, go ahead.
no, go ahead. No, yeah.
No, I thought you're done. I'm sorry. We're trying not to interrupt each other, you guys. We're having a
We
really
have the
hard time
same
with it.
brain, so it doesn't matter. Yes, yes.
Um, no, but I think, this is something that we talked about, April, in our episode where we talked about your story, our Losing Our Religion episode, where also when you're raised in a high demand religion from birth, essentially, um, the two people that you trust most in your life growing up are your parents. So what they say, you believe it and you trust that.
Right.
And so I got to imagine it's really hard to like undo all the things that they
Mhm.
not that they did but the church did, but under
Yeah.
their under their guidance and their leadership, because you're like, well,
Yep.
these people, I trust them more than anything in the world, and they're telling me that this is true and this is what I got to follow. And so it probably makes you go back in your life and just question everything, I have to
Yeah.
imagine.
It's generational
It's
trauma,
a hard
really.
Yeah, it's really
Yeah.
hard.
And to
And
be the one that steps in and says, like, no more, you and I, Hill, I mean, we have
Mhm.
similar stories that way where it's just like, nope, my story's gonna look different.
Right.
And it's very hard, but that's how Hillary and I kind of reconnected and we were able to find each other on this alternative spiritual journey, which has been super fun to be
uh-huh.
able to now finally connect with some things. I think if you did listen to the episode where I was talking about my deconstruction, it was like I was so desperate for something to feel real again. I wanted that connection and that yes, there is more to life than just living and dying, like you were saying. I think that's called
Mhm.
nihilism too, right? When you just deconstruct all the way down to nothing, like it's a very scary thing to feel.
Yes. It
But yeah, but
definitely.
then her and I started kind of picking these little flowers of something, and it was really beautiful.
Yes, I agree. It
Yeah.
has been really beautiful. It's taken a long time. This has been
Yeah.
years to get back to a point where I feel like I'm the old Hillary again, but maybe not old, maybe new and improved.
I agree. I
Yeah.
agree.
But yeah, I got to the dark space. I didn't think that there was anything. I was basically an atheist. I remember my first Christmas where I had that belief where I thought, well, everything in the Bible is just BS. I don't know if I totally believe that now, but I thought this is all junk. And I remember that first Christmas being really depressed that the magic
Mm,
of Christmas was gone. And my husband's like, "Well, you can still believe it if you want to." And I just thought, I don't know if it was my husband or somebody else. I'm like, that's like telling a child Santa's not real, but you can pretend to believe him if you want to. You
yeah.
can't put the cat back in the bag.
Mm-mm.
Like I
Nope.
know that now. Um, but yeah, I just this idea that, oh, just pick and choose these beliefs. I had to find beliefs that actually resonated with me, that felt
Yeah.
like deep in my soul, like they were true.
Hmm.
So
Yeah. And I think that's unique too when you come from a high demand religion. You start to feel like I can make my own decisions. At least for me, I didn't know how to do that. I was always told by somebody in authority, by a man. It was always like a man's point of view. And so for me to kind of come up with my own like, oh, I think this is true and I think that is right for me and I do want to live my way with my life with these morals and values. It was very strange for me to have to say yes to myself.
Yes. So
Yeah.
so on that same note, I mentioned earlier I did traditional therapy and that was great. That helped me unpack a lot of shit. And then I was just in a room full of shit and I didn't know how to fix it. So
Yeah.
I actually went to a healer, a recommended healer, and I didn't know if I believed in it or not, but I was so sad and I was so depressed that like I would have done voodoo at that point. If you had told
Yeah.
me to take this little doll and snuggle her and love her, like I would have just done crazy stuff. So I thought, oh, I'll just try. I want to do anything to feel better.
Yeah.
Oh, and in the midst of this, at the urging of the mental health professional, they did try a couple antidepressants. I thought, well, maybe that'll
Mm.
do the trick. And neither of them worked. In fact,
Okay.
one of them made it infinitely worse.
Oh
Mm.
gosh.
Even though I know there's so many great alternatives out there for women that are in their middle age or going through a hard time, they didn't work for me and they actually made it worse. So I thought I got to try to find a different way. So I started getting into seeing a healer, and then finally I went to Reiki professionals. And one of the exercises they gave me early on that seemed so simple but was so impossible, they gave me a challenge that I needed to wake up every morning, basically do some mild breath work, check in with myself, and then I had to write down on a piece of paper how I was feeling on a scale of 1 to 100. And I was like, "Oh, that's easy. I wake up at 100 every day." They're
Yeah.
like, "No, you don't." I'm like, "Oh, yes, I do. Every day I wake up ready to go, and I've got all this, and I've got my energy, and I've got this. It's not till something like ruins my day that my day gets ruined." But I mean, and they were like, "No, you don't." So this practice of just slowing down,
Yeah.
taking a second, like doing like a short meditation and checking in with how my body feels. Am I in pain? Am I feeling anxious? Am I feeling cramps or this? To stop in, as a mother, we're always taking the temperature of everything in the room. This kid's
Yep.
doing good. This kid's got failing out of this class. This kid's got a busy schedule this week. Oh, my husband's leaving town. Is this done? Does he have everything he needs? I just, all day I took everybody else's temperature, but to take my own was an impossible task.
Yeah.
Very
Yeah.
impossible.
I feel you on that. I really do. And it's just, I know for me, it was just, it's so hard to feel responsible for yourself when you've been able to just lean on everyone else's feelings and beliefs and to do that mid-age like you said. I mean, we're already going through so much hormonally and our life is starting to look a little different and we all April and I've talked about it several times on our pod about just the crap that you go through with perimenopause and all that. You do start to feel like you're losing your mind, but if you can push through and you get these tools like you said, you find the right people, you do the right things for yourself, my gosh, it's the most beautiful thing when it starts opening up. And thankfully Hillary and I have experienced the same like healers and Reiki masters. We have our Trisha. We're going to be interviewing her next week, so we're super excited. But
Oh,
I think for me specifically, it had to be a woman. It had to be women that got me
yeah.
through this because it was
Yep.
so tender and soft and different and divine and just this beautiful thing that I was able to be held by women. And it was
Well,
just such a beautiful
April,
thing.
you and Hillary, I'm sure this is pretty similar. I mean, you grew up being I don't know if controlled is the right word, but maybe a bit controlled by the
Maybe guided
patriarchy.
would be the right word.
What's that?
I said maybe we were guided. Are you going to say by
You were
men?
guided. Yeah, yeah. Well, I was
Yeah.
just going to say you grew up in a very patriarchal kind of
Yep.
religion where the men had all the control. The men
Mm-hmm.
told you whether you could or could not do something. And
Yeah.
so you're right. Like, there's no way you could have gotten through this journey
Mm-mm.
with anything other than a woman trying to guide you. And I think it's interesting because now that I know your story, Hillary, and I obviously know your story, April, it's so interesting to me how parallel your paths were, how you were,
Yeah.
you just talked about this, but I'm just trying to break this down and reconcile it a little bit because, you both were very religious, raised in a high demand religion. And then when you realized it wasn't real, it wasn't like you were like, oh, I'm going to go just be like a non-denominational Christian or whatever.
Yeah.
It was like you went all the way to the other side of, I don't believe there's
Mm-hmm.
anything out there.
Right.
So it was like one extreme to the next. And then
Mm-hmm.
it was almost like that part of you had to die.
Yeah.
And then to your point, a rebirth, you went all the way to like, I'm not going to call it the dark side because I kind of am, I'm kind of atheist adjacent. But not only dark side, but you just had to like start from the beginning, I guess,
Right.
and
Yeah.
then
Yeah.
just like figure out what you believed. And to your point, April, it was all on your terms. You got to do it
Yes.
on your own. There wasn't someone telling you what to believe. You went
Yeah.
down that path, and if it felt right, you kept going. If it
Yep.
didn't feel right, then maybe you made a right turn and then you went straight, and then you just took this zigzag to find
Yeah.
yourself in this spiritual place. So I would love to hear, like, you went to a healer. For a lot of our listeners, they might not know what exactly that means. So, like, talk a little bit about what that looks like the Reiki, and was it like maybe sound baths, or give us a kind of a little bit of a
Um,
synopsis of what that healing looked like.
okay,
Do you
so
remember our first one, Hill? Do you remember the
yeah, that's
very
what I'm
first
talking about.
one
You're
we
talking
went
about
to? Yes.
start for the
Yes.
D.
Yes. Yes.
Okay. So this healer was recommended to me by April. That will be a reoccurring theme in the podcast. Is that she starts running into the wild and I just start chasing after her. So
Yeah.
she had, and actually, ironically, right before I saw this healer, I had my first panic attack. So that was a lot of fun to think that
Ugh.
you're dying.
Yeah.
And I
Yeah.
went to
Been
this
there.
woman.
Had one of those too, several.
Yeah. And what was crazy is when I say she's a healer, she was just her own brand of special because she wasn't necessarily practicing Reiki. Seeing her was like going to therapy, but with somebody who definitely had some gifts. And what she was able to do is I would go in and talk to her. And as I'm talking to her, she's listening and she's like writing it down, right? Kind of writing down some points. And then I would lay on this massage table and she would kind of put this like roller on your body, almost like she was massaging. And as she was doing that, you were kind of releasing trauma. Like you would,
Mm-hmm.
she's like, hey, when you start with me, you've got all this baggage, and slowly you're going to start dropping pieces, and you're going to have that little carry on, and we're going to Hawaii. Like that's what's going to
Right.
happen with me. And I don't know how. So I remember I came home from my very first appointment, which literally I had a panic attack 2 hours before that. And I said, I got better in time to go. And then I called my husband afterwards. He's like, "How was it?" I'm like, "Dude, she did some voodoo. That was definitely voodoo. I feel a lot better." And that's
Yeah.
all I was searching for was for relief.
Yeah.
Because I was raised religious, I, some people will turn to alcohol or smoke pot or whatever you're going to do.
Yeah.
None of those things called to me. I wasn't used to that. I was actually uncomfortable with it and worried I was going to get struck by lightning if I did it. So I had no relief until I saw this healer, and she was beautiful and she got me to like the next point of my journey. And then sadly, she was diagnosed with cancer.
Yeah.
And she's since survived.
Yeah.
and she fought the battle and she won, but she wasn't able to help me for a solid year. So as I wasn't seeing her, the darkness came back, and I was looking into like EMDR therapy. I was looking into hypnotherapy, and I was asking my husband, can you help me? Like, I don't feel okay. And then April goes, oh, you should go see these women who practice Reiki. And like April, I'm like, wait, they do energy work, but they're women. And I went to my first session, and I came home that night, and it was long. It was like a 3 hour
Yeah.
session because I had a lot of
And
shit to do.
just so you know, so when you go into this, you have no idea what to expect. And I
Correct.
do believe that people have these spiritual gifts, and it's so I think we all have them. It's just whether or not you want to tap into that power or not. But I think that we're all born with these beautiful spiritual gifts. So you walk in and you have these two women, and they're holding your hands and you're screaming and you're going through this whole thing, and you're just like, this is nothing that I could ever expect, but you really do feel so much better. So I finally convinced Hillary to do it. And then what did you think after your first session?
Oh, it was great. We did
Yeah.
some early childhood work. I mean, while I was in it, I was like, this is crazy. I did feel a lot better when I walked out. And then I was like
Did you
driving.
scream?
Of course. Yep. I did
Okay,
all the
good.
screaming.
Because
Wait,
some people they have to convince them to.
Yeah.
I want to know about the screaming. So I've done
Yeah.
Reiki before, and I don't know if this session is like you're doing Reiki and other things, but do they make you just scream as loud as you can, or where does that come
Yeah.
from?
Yeah, so it's definitely like a mixture of meditation, breath work, and Reiki.
Okay.
So
Okay.
the Reiki is they're moving energy in and out of
Right.
you. So that's more of a cleansing of like your energy fields. But when they do the scream thing, it's really like so like with what Hillary was saying, if you're doing like inner child work or they'll tap into like for me it was the religious. Like they were like it no longer has a hold on you. They literally made me think that they were pulling a cord out of me and cutting that cord. You are cutting that
Okay.
cord. You are healing 7 generations back and seven generations forward. So it's very visual. Your eyes are closed, so you're not looking at them. So your eyes are closed on the bed. I had like lightning bolts of energy going through me. I mean, it was a very, very real experience for me. It wasn't just woo woo in my mind kind of thing, really good meditation. It was, I mean, I was feeling physically what was happening. And then they grab your hands and they count you down. On the count of three, we're going to scream this out. We're going to release all of that has held you back, all that's held you down and brought you to the dark place or whatever it is, you're going to let it go. And you literally scream to the top of your lungs. And there is something so carnal, so like guttural about screaming. And you know what's really sad, Hillary? It was hard for me at first to scream. When's the last time, listeners, think about when's the last time you actually screamed at the top of your lungs?
Yeah.
I mean, it's
So
not
No.
something that we do as women, right?
So I
No.
have something to add to that.
Yeah.
I have very vivid dreams all the time. Sometimes they relate to my life and what I'm going through. Sometimes they don't. I mean, they may, but I don't know how I got there. And after some of the trauma that I had been through in my life, I would have, when I say a reoccurring dream, probably every 6 months or so,
Yeah.
where I'm actually face to face with somebody who really betrayed me and really discarded me, somebody that I would not have done that to them. And in the dream, I would be screaming at them, like, F you, you did this to me. Who does that? But I'd be screaming at them. And then I did Reiki, and I don't think I've had that dream since. I finally
What?
like released all of that. And I was doing it in
Wow.
my dream. Obviously, I'm asleep. I wasn't really doing it, but all of that anger and all that frustration, I would be yelling at them and I would get like nothing back, which in the dream would
Mm,
make it even worse. Like, you don't even care.
right.
You did this to me. You don't even
Right.
care. But when I did it in Reiki and I went down, this journey, and I think it's different for everybody. When I got to the point where like, we're going to release all this and you screamed at the top of your lungs, which is honestly something I've never done before. There's something very, I don't know. It just gets a lot out of you. I feel like that
Sure
stored
does. And
inside.
I started crying afterwards, which is another
Mhm.
thing that I don't like. I'm not really a cry. I mean, I love to cry, but I think I've just pushed it down for so many years that it's kind of hard to connect with that. I'm getting better,
Yeah.
but I bawled my eyes out. I mean, it was just like for the first time in my life, I felt heard, I felt seen, I felt held. I felt healed. I mean, it was just this beautiful thing. And so
Yeah.
we just really started leaning into Trisha as a healer. And she just was this beautiful, not only is she like a Reiki, she is a Reiki master, but she also is a life coach too. So she can help talk you through your problems and have like an alternate way of looking at things. So here you are, you're starting to go on this journey of healing. Does your husband know you're screaming in the middle of the day with
Oh,
strangers?
no. So hold on. So I'm trying to remember if I told him or not, because I came home that first day. I had this long session. It was really amazing. And we're driving in the car, I think just to pick up our daughters from dance. And I had the music on loud and I was singing at the top of my lungs to the music. And he was like, wow, something must have changed. You haven't done this in
Mm,
like years, right? The Hillary now, I'm turning on, whatever song. I mean, it could be the Wicked
yes.
soundtrack. I love singing in my car. I hadn't done it forever. So he knew
Oh,
something was different. So he's like, all right, like I'll give this a whirl. So he's like, well, what do you do? And I'm like, oh, I can't tell you. He's like, why can't you
yeah.
tell me? And the reason why I didn't want to tell him is because in my session, there's a lot of similarities to April. You do a meditation and they take you on a journey, and it's kind of like an open-ended prompt, so like, oh, you
Mhm.
get to this place, what do you see? And your mind fills in the blank. So what I didn't want to do is tell him my whole journey. I
Yeah.
went here, I saw this tree, I was in this box, whatever it was, I didn't want to give him my journey. I wanted him to go in completely not knowing what was going on. So he
Right.
went, which I love because he's open-minded and is like, I'll give it a whirl. And I think that if you were to ask him, he would recommend it as well. I think it was
I feel the
definitely
same. Yep.
helpful
And
for
You
even
him.
my
know,
husband did the same thing. And they told me, I said, how hard was it to get him to scream? And they said they were counting down me, and my husband said, I'm not going to do it. I'm not going to do it. I'm not doing it. And they said 3, 2, 1. He's like screaming, but he was like, I'm not
that's
going to do it.
funny.
I'm not doing this. And then all of a sudden he said something about it. Yeah. Go ahead,
Well,
April.
it's, every people who've listened know that I call myself a cynic all the time. And, when I went to visit April, was it last year?
My birthday
April?
last year. Yeah.
Yeah, last year. Um, I'd never done, well, I'd done Reiki one time, but I'd never really done the sound bowl thing. And the woo woo thing, just I was a little bit unsure about it. And by the way, I'm not trying to make this about me. I'm just trying to our listeners, like, it really is cool because I had no idea what to expect. I went in
Mm,
with an open mind and an open heart because I'm like, let's just see what this is all about because I'd heard April talk so much about it. And going in as, questioning things and as a cynic, I was kind of blown away with how I felt coming out of it. So I think it's, I only bring that up just to say, like, for the listeners, I felt in a very meditative state. Trisha played the sound bowls. So it kind of starts with that, which is very soothing.
mm,
We were laying on a blow up mattress outside. So the birds are chirping. You're hearing the sound bowls go. You just kind of go into this like meditative state and your
yeah.
mind just kind of starts working. And then she comes around and kind of puts her hands near you or lightly on you, and she can feel the energy coming off of your body. And this lasts for about an hour, would you
Yeah.
say, April?
It's
And
glorious.
then
Yeah.
it's so wonderful. And again, you feel like you're on something, but you're not. It's
Yeah.
just
Mhm.
your body just feels high. And
Yep.
then afterwards, she talks about the energy and what she's kind of seeing. April talks about gifts, and the gifts she's talking about are like what she sees, what you're exuding, what energy she's getting from you. And so she talks about that. And I have to say, I was blown away because what came off of me was that she's like, you need some more, you need like some water in your life, or maybe I can see like a water fountain, like you're gonna get one for your yard. And the craziest thing was that weekend before, my husband and I had gone shopping for a fountain for our backyard.
No
Mhm.
way.
Yeah.
And it
Are we
was
even
such
surprised? No, we're not even
it,
surprised.
No.
Yeah.
it was such a random thing that I'm like, because I live in Charlotte, North Carolina. There's no way she would have like known that my husband and I were shopping for a fountain. It's not like I posted it on social media. The fact that
Right.
she just like pulled that out of nowhere made me, I'm like, this is true. Like, this is real.
Yeah.
This is
She
crazy.
Wow.
does it over and over again. She
Yeah.
does it
I went
over and
in as
over
a
again. I'm
cynic and I
telling
came
you.
out and I was like, when can I do this again? Like, tell me more.
Totally.
What do
I
I
know
Totally.
need to
April
know?
always man, I wish I lived over by you guys
I
because we're
know.
so lucky, Hill, that we have so many things that are like at our
You are.
fingertips here in California. We've got all the
Yeah,
woo-woo
we
hippie
don't.
dippy shit out here.
Oh,
We
totally.
don't. So anyway, I don't mean to hijack the conversation.
No.
I want people to understand who are listening about this kind of spiritual path because I'm starting to go down it as well. And again, I wish I had
Mhm.
access like you guys do. I'm so
Yeah.
jealous, but it really is a cool thing and it's not scary. It's interesting as hell because
Yeah.
you're getting the answers from yourself for the most part, you
Yep.
know,
Totally.
which is pretty cool. So anyway,
And I think
sorry.
that's truly something that I've realized, and I wonder, Hillary, if you feel the same way when you realize that the power is within. It's
Yeah.
like, wait, what? I don't have to look outside to get
Yeah,
answers and connection, and I can do this all on my own, and I can do it. Like, it's all me. I don't have to have a man in authority or a robe or, crossing me, telling me, one way or the other. I can actually connect with God, source, whatever you want to call it,
Right.
myself. And it's
Yeah.
beautiful. Yeah.
I
So
know
you
it's
go through this healing, you do the outside stuff, and then what's happening then with your life?
so yeah, so I went to the place that April had suggested, and it would fill my cup, and then I would take some time off, and then I would go dark, and then I'd fill my cup, and I'd go dark. So actually, I don't ever make New Year's resolutions, but when January 1st came of 2024, I was like, so that would have been, let's see, it'd be right before I turned 44. So I'm about
Right.
3 years into this dark place, and I
It's
said,
always 44. It's always 44. I'm
freaking
telling you, for everyone I
44.
know. For
Yeah, well, I
everyone I
was
know.
43 at the time, turning 44 in
Yeah.
a few months, and when January 1st came, I said, "I am gonna take the time, and I'm going to spend the money to fully heal myself. I'm going to go see Trisha, who you guys are gonna be interviewing, who's
Mhm.
amazing, and I said, "I'm going to do this every other week until I am better. Like, I am not gonna
Mm.
stop." And so, I've heard you say before on the podcast, healing isn't linear. I got a lot better, then there were some sharp turns. Then I got
Yep.
better, then there was some sharp turns. And then it was funny because I got to a point where I was like, "Okay, like, I think I got this. Like, I'm happy. I've got everything I need in me. Like, I don't really think that I need this anymore. Like, I've got this, but am I being too overzealous and thinking I've got this on my own?" I shit you not. I go into my next session and she goes, "So, I just want to know what you want to talk about." She goes, "I've really been thinking about it. You've got all the skills now. I've watched you blossom into this beautiful girl. Like, you know what you're doing. You're giving me advice now." I mean, not that I'm a healer in any way, shape, or form, but I was kind of talking to her as a peer, and she's like, I kind of think you're done. You don't really need to see me anymore, which is
Mm.
also a testament to some of these energy workers that, like, she could see my energy. She knew I
Right.
wasn't in a dark any place anymore. She knew I had the tools. Now that's not to say I don't have dark times still. We all have bad days here and there, but by and large, I'm so grateful to be alive in Southern
Mm.
California right here, right now, with beautiful girls like you guys to talk to. And in this new space, I don't have a lot of times when people find out that I've kind of ditched the faith that I was raised in. Everybody's like, "Well, where are you at now? And what are your beliefs now?" And I definitely have beliefs, they change all the time. But I'm actually so curious to hear all beliefs. So,
Yes.
if we had more time, Carolina, April, I'd be like, "Okay, so why do you lean towards atheism?" And because you said you kind of dabbled in that. Were there
Yes.
some experiences that you had? And in my religious mind, I would have asked you that question. And as you told me your answer, I'd be like, "That's not right. That's not right.
Yeah.
Nope, nope. It's got to be for our Lord and Savior Jesus Christ." That's how I would have thought. Now, everybody's experience is so real and I'm so open. And it's like,
Mhm.
it's weird because I'm living in the same world. I mean, I live in the town I grew up with, but I'm living in a whole different world today, and
Yeah.
there's beauty everywhere. And
Yep.
Yeah.
I'm just so grateful for it. And I think I told you guys the pendulum swung. I was like, none of this matters. We're all going to die. There's no greater power. And now I'm sitting here talking to you two, and I'm thinking, wow. So the universe orchestrated that I would grow up here that I would cross paths with this sweet Aries that we weren't close when we met, but I just always felt this connection. I felt
Yeah.
almost like a tug to her. And then
Mhm.
right in my darkest moment, when I was like, who can I call and talk to? It was her. Right.
Yeah.
And then I
Yeah.
meet a healer or a Reiki person that lives in my neighborhood. That's like, it's hard for me to think that that was all a coincidence.
Right. And
Right.
it's not.
So
Yeah.
there's
I
And
would
we know that.
agree.
definitely something greater orchestrating this, and I
Yeah.
don't have all the answers, but I'm freaking enjoying the ride, that's for sure.
And
Yeah.
that's the whole
It
point of
really
life, right? Is to really like
yeah.
enjoy yourself. And like you said, when your husband noticed you singing in the car, like my husband said certain things like, babe, I've never seen you so happy. I've never seen you so grounded. I love that you're chasing your dreams. I love that you're doing whatever the hell you want. I mean, it's almost like the more you open up to possibility and without any restraints or caring what people think, the bigger your life will get and the
Yeah.
bigger your dreams will get. And it's
Yeah.
so much fun.
It's so true. I mean, I know I used to call myself an atheist, and I still, I guess, refer to myself as an atheist sometimes, but I feel like through I mean, even though I've only worked with Trisha once, but through like my own kind of spiritual journey, I do believe that there's got to be something out there. And I don't
Yeah.
know if it's to me, I don't think it's God. I don't know if I refer to my God as the universe. you
Right.
know, like
Yeah.
I just say, because right now, we're going through some stuff in our family, and I'm like, the universe is got our back. Like we just
Yep.
got to trust the universe. It's putting everything in place the way it's supposed to be. So I replace God with universe right now because that's
Yep.
all I can really stomach because I'm
Yep.
still learning. But I'm like
And guess
you,
what? That's
Hillary.
okay.
Yeah, and I'm like you, Hillary, where I'm just interested in what other people are thinking, what they're learning, what they know, what they believe, because I'm like, I'm fine with being wrong if my beliefs end up whatever.
Yeah.
Something happens and we find out that God is true or whatever. Like I'm glad to be wrong, but this is just how I feel right now. So I'm also
Right.
on a journey. And I think it's really fun and interesting to talk to people who've gone through different stories because I think we all learn from each other, and it's just great to be able to support other women, and I'm proud of you for going through it and doing the hard work.
Yeah.
Thank
And I
you.
know for me, like right now, everybody's getting used to or getting ready to go to college and
Mhm.
chasing their dreams. And for me, it's kind of been a trigger for me that I wasn't expecting with my daughter really chasing a career for herself. And I'm like, damn it. Like I would have done that. It's like I
Like you
never
wish
really
you would
got
have
that
done.
chance. Yeah. I didn't get the chance to dream about like what would
Yeah.
April want to do? What would I mean, of course I've always had
Mhm.
these like, oh, I want to be an actress or do this or that, but truly a career because and I loved being a mama. Wouldn't
Mhm.
I love that I was able to be a stay-at-home mom. But that was the only thing that I was allowed to dream is to be a
Right.
stay-at-home mom, raise these kids, and it was great. But I just think, gosh, my baby girl, she wants to be a speech pathologist. Like that's
I
so
know.
badass. And I love the fact that our children and Hillary, you as well, and April, of course, the way you've raised your girls is amazing. But we get to change that with our
Yeah.
generation, with the next generation. We get to let our boys dream and our girls dream. And it doesn't matter. Like this is their life. And so I think that's something that opens up with this deconstruction too, is that you realize that this is your life.
Right.
God, universe, whatever you feel comfortable saying is going to love you no matter what and will be here no matter what. And you'll connect inside yourself with that outside thing.
Mhm.
And it's this beautiful, unconditional, wonderful thing that you don't have to be scared of.
Yep.
Yeah. Yeah.
100%.
So
Yeah.
with that, so I love that you guys landed on your feet. You're still happily married. You're still going on many adventures. You're almost, I don't know if you feel this way, but like with my husband and I, we almost feel like we have a new marriage now. We're like, April and Joe 2.0. Like it's just so much fun.
Well,
And
I agree. I think it's a lot of fun to be married with somebody that, you enjoy their company. It's a lot of fun when you guys get to show up as who you really are instead of who you're supposed to be, you
oh,
know? So when I was living the more traditional conservative lifestyle, it was my husband's job to provide, and it was my
mhm,
job to do quite literally everything else. And what that did over time for me, I can't speak for him, but for me, it built a lot of resentment. I was
yeah,
like, "Well, how come your job is, he worked a lot, 60 or
Yeah.
70 hours a week, but mine's 24/7. Like,
Yep.
why can't you change a diaper? Why can't you wake up during the night? But I was like, oh, that's not his job. He has to do this. So I had resentment. I think that he felt the pressure being in like a little patriarchal environment to do everything right and to say the right thing and have the right answer and be like, I don't know, just the perfect father. And he's my husband first. He's the guy that
Right.
I met in high school that would like tell a crude joke or like do something inappropriate. Like, we lost all of that in the midst of
Yeah.
trying to be this perfect traditional wife, traditional marriage. And so now that when we're showing up like who we are and being like, I freaking hate this, or I don't want to do this anymore, or these
Yeah.
kids aren't freaking terrible. We can just like
Yeah.
just be honest and authentic. So there's this whole new level of connection. And, you know, this isn't necessarily what the religion preaches, right? But I thought that God would love me if I was a good wife, a good mother, and I did all the right things. And that carried into a lot of aspects in my life. I may have felt that with my parents, and I also felt that in my marriage. My husband's only going to love me if I'm the perfect wife, if I look good, if I cook good, if I all these things I had to do to essentially earn his love. And now that I've been to basically hell and back, and he's seen all the real parts of me, I stopped like doing a lot of the household chores. That's not to say I do none of them. I depending on the day, but like he's seen all my ugly, he's seen the true of me. I don't want to do this anymore and he still loves me.
Yeah.
And like that level of love that I don't have to earn, like I could just eat that all up every day. And I just didn't have it before. That's not to say he wasn't giving it to me, but the system that we were in, I believed that I had to perform to receive love. And I actually
Mhm.
dumpster fire and still be lovable, which is a really good
Yes.
That is a
It's so
good place
true
to be in.
too. Yeah. And when
Yeah.
you're healed like that, you love that way too. That's what I've really noticed. Like I can spot in a crowd someone who's not healed because of how they are reacting to people and how they're showing up for people and how they're showing love. If you're not healed, it's like hurting people hurt people. Well, healed people heal people. So when
Yes.
you can feel that unconditional love, you give it away, which is so juicy and yummy and wonderful. And it makes you want to be around just those kind of people, right? It's like, oh my gosh, like and they're so much fun to be around you guys. We love double dating with them and we have the best time and we just giggle and we just look at each other and just, we have such a great friendship. And I'm so thankful for that. And I love that. And so with that, when you really think about this whole journey that you've been on and like you said, the dark times, the bright times, all that kind of stuff, what do you think now is the purpose of life? What is the
Ooh.
purpose of life for Hillary? What do you think we're here for?
Okay, so the best way honestly, I do believe that life is a gift, and I feel that our job as human beings is to do our best to enjoy every single second we're here. The good
Mm,
times and the bad, you know what I mean? We're having a bad day, we've got all this work to do, we gotta pick up our kids. Well, the person, down the street who's dying of cancer is looking at your life going, "Shoot, like, I wish I had the opportunity to get up and go to work." So, like, life is a gift, and I think we have not a responsibility, but to do it right is to find joy and have fun. And I
right.
swear, I've talked to you about it before, April. There's a Disney movie, and I can't remember the name of it, but it's like the little saxophone player who dies. And can anybody remember the
Oh,
name of it?
little saxophone player who died.
The saxophone player, he falls through a manhole, he dies, and he's helping these souls find their purpose so they can come to earth.
Oh, yes, it's like a jazz thing. It's a jazz
Yes.
movie. Yes,
Okay.
what was that called? Oh my
This is
gosh.
gonna
Yeah,
kill me.
we'll
I'm
figure it
gonna have
out.
to
Yeah.
well, you're gonna have to figure it out and put it in your
Yeah.
notes for the show.
Yeah,
Yes.
we'll fact check it.
Yes,
We'll fact
but
Yes.
it's this sweet little Disney movie, and this guy dies on the best day of his life. So spoiler alert for those, and he somehow escapes going to heaven, and he goes to like where you go before you come to earth, and he's helping these souls come to
It's called
earth.
Soul. It's called Soul.
Soul, that's what it
Yes.
is. I'm
Yes.
telling
Yes.
you, soul could be my religion right now. Because
Ooh.
if
Oh.
you watch the movie, there's this cute little soul and it's trying to find its purpose in life, and he says like, "Oh, my purpose in life is I love to enjoy the sunset, or I love to look at the leaves." And the other guy's like, that's not your purpose. Everybody does that. But you kind of
Mhm.
realize that that is what life is, just enjoying what we have, right?
Ooh, I got
Yeah.
full body chills
I
right now.
know.
I have
I've got to watch
chills.
that. I haven't seen that. Okay. That's on
Yeah,
my to-do
yeah.
list now.
Okay, you have to watch, and we're circling back. I want to know what you think about it,
Okay.
especially given your spiritual beliefs are
Yeah.
kind of in the middle. I'm curious how it will affect you.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yes.
I'm excited. Okay. I've got homework to do.
Right.
I just think that's great. Yeah. Sorry,
Yes.
April, what were you saying, honey?
Well, I was just gonna say, I know we're gonna have to let you go. We're going past an hour here. We don't want to keep you too much longer, but do you have any advice for someone who's kind of going through
Mm,
what you went through? Like, I don't know, you called it a midlife crisis or a rebirth. Like, do you have any advice for women? I mean, around 44, we said that's kind of,
yeah.
the number when things start shifting and changing, and that sure was the case for myself as well. So what would you recommend? What would you tell women who are, about to turn 44
So,
and
Get ready. Get
they're
ready.
starting to question things. Buckle
yes.
up.
So I would tell that girl who, in the first 40 years, we just say is research at this point, right? I would tell
Mm,
her that everything she needs to change and make her life better and healed is actually inside of her. If you can find somebody that helps you access that, as I have, that is a true gift. But actually, everything that you have is right inside you. And
mm,
I believe that. That realization has helped me parent my kids better, because I'm looking at them and I think, oh, that's not the decision I would have made. Why are they doing that? That's stupid. And I realize my kids have everything they need right inside of them to live
mm,
the life that's right for them. And
Hmm.
so, I know I know religious people would disagree with me, and you need to access God and he will bless you. But if God created us and he created us in his image, then we have that in us. The tools are inside of us. So
Yeah,
mm.
I think
I
I
love
think you
that.
have everything you need right inside of you.
That's really
Amen
good
to
advice.
that.
I
Amen.
really
Okay,
love.
telling Hillary, I wanted to ask her what's the best advice you've ever received, and then what's the worst advice you've ever received, and then we'll wrap it up.
Oh, well, I kind of just said it now. It's two
Yeah.
sides of the same coin. So, I think that the best advice that I ever received was to look inside me, like what's going
Mm,
to make you happy, what's going to make you tick, what's going to heal you. It was actually in my heart. It was in my soul, which I had never accessed in my 44 years of life. And I would say the worst advice I've gotten is to outsource that to somebody else. So, in my religious life, you would have gone to a religious leader and they would have given you counsel on what was best for you. That's so weird
yeah.
to me because I can't tell California April or North Carolina April. I actually can't tell you what's best for you. I can only
Right.
tell you that what's best for you is in your heart. So that's for me is
Mhm.
best and worst advice. Best advice is it's all in you. Worst advice is try to find it somewhere else.
Oh man, that's
That's
perfect. Well,
good.
thank you so much for
Oh,
being
thank
here
you,
today. I just love
Hillary.
you.
Oh, thank you guys
Yes.
for having me. It's been
And
a
we got to
Thanks
pleasure.
get
for
North
telling your
Carolina
story.
April out here.
Yes, I'm
Yes.
buying my ticket. I'm on my
Yes.
way. We're
Yes.
gonna go do Reiki.
Oh, I would love it. That'd be so
Yes, I
fun.
know.
All
I
right,
love it so
ladies, thank
much.
you all so much. Great day, and thanks again for sharing your story, Hillary. We appreciate it.
Yes.
Okay.
Okay,
Love
take care.
you.
Bye.
Mhm.
Thank you for listening to We Are Fine and Neither Are You. This podcast is all about spreading joy, knowledge, and laughter. While we strive to provide accurate information, please keep in mind that we're only human and mistakes happen. In addition, we would like to remind our listeners that the opinions expressed throughout this episode are for entertainment and informational purposes only. We do not claim to be experts in any particular field, and the content provided should not be taken as professional advice. We encourage you to consult with qualified professionals or do your own research before making any decisions based on the information shared in this podcast. Thank you for joining us, and remember to stay curious and critical in your pursuit of knowledge. Please rate and review this episode. Your feedback is important to us.